listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Welcome. You are listening to Second Wind. I am Joyce Buford, and I'm your host today, and I'm delighted that you are here today. Now, my guest has been with us before, and she is a fabulous guest because we get into some really, really good discussions. Discussions about relationships, finding your love, and she does it in such an unusual way with the scientific part of relationships. So, when we think about relationships, sometimes we get kind of hung up, particularly in later life, when we look at new relationships. So let me tell you a little bit about her because I'm so excited that she's back with us today. Dr. Duana Welch is the author of the original Love Factually books. There's a series. She talks about the single, finding love, the parent, the mother with the parent that has children finding love. She has three books that are really helpful tools to help you transition through finding love again. And she is known for using social science to solve real life relationship issues. Now, she has contributed to Psychology Today and numerous other publications in addition to teaching psychology across 20 years at universities and colleges in California, Florida, and Texas. Her clients' practice is global, and it's via Zoom and other technologies. So welcome, Duana. It is a thrill to have you here again. I can't wait to get on this.
Thank you, Joyce. I always love talking with you. I just always feel so energized afterward, and you have a great audience. So I'm looking forward to this as well. And, I'm always thrilled to let science help people because that's what it should do, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be gathering dust in journals or gathering, sitting in pixels online. It should be helping you. Your tax dollars paid for this science. Let it help you.
Well, explain a little bit more what that means when you say science helps us.
Well, what I mean is the same scientific methods that are used to study biology and the physical world can be used and are used to study our emotional life. The same methodologies can be applied, and they are applied, and they show us what causes what, not merely what's associated with what, but things that cause each other. So, for example, we know that, forgiving an ex-spouse causes the forgiver to have a happier life with better outcomes and better love relationships going forward. We know cause effect because there have been experiments done where you randomly assign some people to learn how to forgive and other people you just use as a control group, and you see these outcomes only for the forgiving group. So we know that it causes it. Yeah.
Not forgiving actually prevents you from finding love, or can you say
well that? There are people who don't forgive who find love, but it's not the same quality. First of all, when I talk about forgiveness, I'm speaking of it scientifically. I'm not speaking of it the way maybe, your minister or priest or rabbi or whoever would be speaking about it. I'm not talking about forgive and forget. I'm not saying turn the other cheek. What I am saying is research defined. Defines forgiveness as letting go of anger and the desire for revenge. That's all it is. It doesn't mean come over here and do it again. It doesn't mean I'm going to tell you I forgave you, which makes me vulnerable to you. It doesn't mean forgetting. No, don't forget. The best predictor of what somebody's going to do is what they did do. So if you forget, you aren't taking care of yourself.
Right.
But people who hang on to anger, it truly is corrosive, and it's corrosive to our emotional life. And when our emotional life is corroded, it corrodes our ability to form new relationships at all and to form new relationships that are healthy.
you said something that I do want to visit again. I think a lot of people think that the forgiveness is, I just let everything go and then it never creeps back into my body. Forgiveness kind of waves, doesn't it? It comes, it goes. Is it totally gone? No.
So forgiveness is a process, and I'm
Yeah.
really happy you brought that up. It's not like one and done. Most,
Yes.
when you think about forgiving someone, you're not thinking about the person who cut you off in traffic this morning. Forgiveness means that there has been a substantial betrayal, a
Yeah.
betrayal that's so big that you have to actually think about and process whether to let go of this anger.
Right.
And a lot of people hang on to that anger because they feel safer that way. They feel like, if I was abused, I have to be angry at my abuser, because if I'm not, then I might lower my defenses, let this person back into my life, and then they're just going to do it again. And I'm
Right.
here to tell you, you can forgive without becoming vulnerable to this person again. You don't have to let them back into your life.
Mm.
Forgiveness is really about you. It's not about them.
Yeah.
It's about letting go of the anger so that you can flourish. It's not about telling them that you forgave them or making their life easy or welcoming them back into your life. It's not about any of those things.
Mm. Yeah.
It can include some of that, but it doesn't
Yeah.
have to. The essential criterion to forgive is to let go of anger. And the way we do that, it's a process,
Mm-hmm.
which you just alluded to. And the process is, first of all, think about everything that you need to forgive this person for. How did they hurt you? What did they specifically do? And either write a letter that you're not going to send,
Yeah.
write a letter where you say, you hurt me in all these ways. This is what you did. This is what it felt like. That's step one. Or you can tell the empty chair.
Yes. I did the chair.
Yeah, either one of those is fine. And then the next step, most people find that part to be the easier part. They might not like revisiting it, but they don't resist that part too much. The next part is a big ask, because there is no forgiveness without empathy, and we do not want to empathize with the person that we're trying to forgive.
Oh.
Empathy means seeing the events through their eyes. So we start by saying, darling, here's all the ways you done me wrong, and here's how it hurt me. And then we say, from your point of view, it probably seemed like XYZ. The reason people don't like to do the from your point of view part of it is they think it's making an excuse. So I want to let you off the hook here. It's not making an excuse.
Yeah.
It's an explanation. It's not an excuse. They shouldn't have done what they did. You are correct that they shouldn't have done what they did. I'm not ever going to ask you, nor is science, to say, oh, no big deal. It was a big deal, or you wouldn't have to be processing it like this. You're right. It was a big deal. The reason that it's important to see the events through the abuser or betrayer's eyes is because when you do that, you will discover something profound that will set you free.
Mm.
And that thing is, it was never about you. They were going to do this to whoever was in their life. You just happened to be the person who was in their life.
Ah.
They were doing this for their own reasons, having nothing to do with you. When you see that it's not personal, it just somehow makes it much easier to stop being angry. It's not personal. We're angry because something impacts us personally. That's why we're angry.
Right. Yeah.
We're angry because we feel like we're not safe without the anger. You can be safe without the anger. You don't have to say it's not a big deal or let this person back into your life or ever tell them that you forgave them. It's about you. It's about your well-being. It sets you free. I taught this for 20 years in various universities, from Florida to California to Texas. And I got letters every semester from people who said things like the following: this is the first time since I was 14 that I've felt happy.
They hung on to it, didn't they?
Well, they didn't feel safe unless they held on to it. It
Yeah.
had never occurred to them. And I'll tell you why it didn't occur to them. I'm a person of faith, but I have to tell you, a lot of religious institutions say that forgiving is forgetting and allowing this person back into your life. That's not safe.
No.
Now, I'm not saying you have to completely trash every person who ever betrayed you, but the decision to erect boundaries of how much contact to have with them is a different decision than whether or not to forgive them. You can forgive someone and have zero contact. You can forgive someone and see them every day. The decision of how much contact is safe for you is a separate choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were taught forgiving means letting this person do whatever they want, that is not the case from a research standpoint. If that's re-traumatization.
Right. Yeah.
That's letting the person who betrayed you just do it again. It's not wise.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do want to, as we move on, I do want to ask a few questions about some of the relationships when you talk about using science. Well, communication doesn't mean science to me, but communicating is so important in every relationship. And so talk a little bit about communication. You spoke about communication online, which a lot of us do these days if we're really seeking a partner or a friend through the dating services. But I also think I had horrible communications in my life and in my marriage and in my life too. It just wasn't one of those skills I developed growing up. So how does one get better communication skills?
Yes. So a lot of great points you just brought up. One of them is most of us were not raised with effective modeling.
No.
So for example, a lot of people who are very hot tempered will show emotionally violent communication in front of the children. And a lot of people who get along really well think, oh, we shouldn't argue in front of the kids. So either way, the people with good skills never show their children their good skills. And the people with terrible skills show them all too frequently. The middle ground is we need to, as parents, most of us are or have been or will be parents or grandparents, we need to communicate effectively and let our children see us having effective disagreements. There is no emotional intimacy without conflict, but conflict doesn't mean denigrating the other person's value, their basic worth, their dignity, who they are as a person. None of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I remember a woman that I knew back in graduate school who had never married, and she described her parents' marriage, and it was idyllic. Her dad would bring her mom coffee in bed every morning, and they would embrace in front of the children, and they were so loving, and they were each other's best friends, and they grieved so much for each other that one of them died and then the other died the very next month. And it was just the story was just beautiful. But I said to her, but you've never married? And she said, no, my parents never once had a fight in front of me, so I don't know how they did this, and I've never learned how to find somebody like that or how to communicate however it was that they were communicating. As soon as I have a disagreement with someone, I freeze up and I leave the relationship because I don't understand. Yeah. So her parents actually had a great relationship, but they didn't communicate effectively. So the good news is first of all, science has studied this ad nauseum. We know exactly what makes for healthy and unhealthy communication. And we know for sure that you can learn it. Normal people can learn how to do this. It's not rocket science. It's not hard. Now, I will say, caveat, if you're with someone who uses cruelty of any form to systematically control you, this won't make them a better person.
Yeah.
If you're with someone who uses money or sex or threats of violence or emotional put downs for any kind of hurtful behavior in a sustained way for the purpose of controlling you, which is how researchers define abuse.
Mm-hmm.
If you're with somebody who does this, you can communicate effectively all you want, and they're still going to do what they do because they are an abuser. It's just what they do. Don't beat yourself up about that. They're already doing that for you.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
I need to say that because I get letters from people who say, I listened to this or I read this other thing from you about effective communication. My spouse is an abuser. This is what they do to me. And I've done everything you said and they're still abusing me. Well, yeah. All the studies of abusers show that they continue pretty much for the rest of your life. There was one person in the only 5-year continuous study of abusers and their partners over a 5-year span of time. There was one abuser who quit, and that person quit the physical abuse, but not the emotional abuse, which means the abuse actually never stopped. One out of hundreds.
Right. Yeah.
If this person's abusing you, that's going to continue. And I have 2 books about detecting abuse before it happens and about escaping from an abuser. I have books on Amazon about those topics.
Oh, you do?
I do. Yeah, because I've got 8 books out now.
Really?
I've got 3 that are, in-depth, full-length books. And then I've got 5 that are single topic, really short books. And so that's 2 of them. So getting to effective communication, I'm going to just give you a quick formula for how to have a difficult discussion with a reasonable person, not an abuser.
Okay.
Here's the formula. I felt blank when blank happened. And I really need blank. That's it. Notice the focus is on your feelings, not their failings.
Yes.
It's on the event, not the person's character. And it's on what you need, not how horrible they are.
Yeah.
The focus is on the here and now, not everything they ever did wrong, not the 10 times in the past and the times that you think will happen in the future. The rules of effective engagement are these. You focus on your feelings, this present event, and only this present event and what you need. And the reason to do that is research shows that, first of all, most partners actually do want to take care of each other and please each other. When people start off with a statement that focuses on the other person's failings, what we're telling the other person is you're not good enough. And, that creates defensiveness. And research shows over the past 40 years that what happens when we bring something up in a way that elicits defensiveness is that the argument ends on the same note it starts on. The relationship actually degrades over time and you don't get what you want, which is love from your partner. You want to be, ultimately, the reason that all of us get upset to begin with is we feel that our partner is not on our side. That's what's at the bottom of all argument is, are you on my side? Are you there for me? That's the question unspoken behind every disagreement. Now, how would you find out if somebody was on your side? You would ask the question in such a way that they could answer non-defensively.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I would never have thought of start making a statement like that. So does that mean I never saw it modeled in my growing up years? I never took a psychology course when I was in college or in high school. And so how does one know, unless they're listening to this podcast today, that these are the basic tools that you need?
Well, fortunately, there really are some excellent resources out there for people to communicate better. I've been on a number of podcasts about it. So a lot of people listen to podcasts, as you know, you've got a big audience. Another way is to read books that are about this. There's a book called Nonviolent Communication that goes into great detail about this. There are books, my book, Love Factually for Single Parents, that book has a whole section about communicating in a way that's likely to get your partner on the same page. It's got all of these tools in it. So, there are a lot of ways to get the tools. We usually don't get them with our upbringing, unfortunately. We have to, have you ever heard of the term bibliotherapy?
Nope.
Bibliotherapy means enhancing your emotional life through reading. And it's a real thing. Research shows that bibliotherapy works. You can, if you find a book that speaks to you, that communicates these concepts very clearly and gives examples of these concepts. My Love Factually for Single Parents, it has lots. It's the only book I've written where the last third of the book is how to have an effective, happy relationship. That's all the last third of the book is about.
Well, I have that book.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, get a book that speaks to you where you feel like, you know what, I get it. I can do this. Here are some examples. I can practice this. And research shows that people will improve their communication. And when they allow their partner if I say to you, Joyce, I felt frustrated when we couldn't have the podcast next week, and I would appreciate, maybe give me like a 3-day heads up next time. You'd be like, I mean, wouldn't you be able to say, yeah, sure, I can do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As opposed to criticizing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody says, well, you're so disorganized and you don't understand X, Y, well, now you don't like them and you don't want to do what they want you to do.
Yeah. Right.
And the great thing about effective communication is it's actually more genuine. When we say, you're like this and you're like that, and you don't care about me, that's coming from a place of fear and anger, but it's not actually telling the person the real issue. The real issue
Right.
is I feel vulnerable, as if you don't want to meet my needs, and I need to hear from you that I'm important. That's really what's going on. When you say, I felt blank when blank happened and I need X, Y, or Z, you are getting this person on your team. You are helping this person understand, I need this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just reading a book by this great scientist named Terry Orbuck. Dr. Orbuck, she is the scientist behind the Early Years of Marriage Project, which the National Institute of Health has funded her research for 30 years now. So it is no longer Early Years of Marriage. It's still called the Early Years of Marriage Project because she started it 30 years ago with 372 couples who she is now still researching. She's still researching all these people every year. And what she found, the top predictor of divorce was unrealistic expectations. And the reason was because people get so frustrated that they can't communicate the way I'm talking about communicating. Mm-hmm. If you communicate like this, you will not get rid of all your problems. Nobody can do that, by the way. Did you know 2/3 of every couple's problems never get solved?
No, that's too high.
Oh, no. It's every couple, though. It's the happy couples and the unhappy couples. So the problems, every couple, 2/3 of every couple's problems never get solved. I'm just here to tell you, if you choose a person, you are choosing a set of issues that will never be solved. But that doesn't mean you have to be miserable. That means you need to be realistic that, first of all, you don't have to solve every problem. You can be happy without solving all your problems. How about that? Mm-hmm. You can have problems and be happy anyway. We know that because most couples actually are happy. Most couples are happy. So, and their problems aren't solved either. You don't have to you don't have to fix everything, but you do have to speak to each other in a way that cherishes this person, affirms their value and worth to you as your irreplaceable person, shows them love, shows them affection, shows them friendship, and lets them know what they can do in this moment to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's loving their, almost loving their little idiosyncrasies that we all have, right? We all carry those little things with us. Close the cabinet door, not closing the cabinet door.
It's big things too.
Yeah.
Here's something, money. Money is one of the top three. It's the number one thing couples fight about per the Early Years of Marriage Project. It's the number one thing couples fight about. And that issue more than any other tends to lead to really heated arguments that go off the rails and ultimately undermine the entire relationship. I'm not saying don't argue about money. What I'm saying is argue about it the way I'm talking about it. Happy couples know, look, one of us just likes to spend more and the other likes to save more. You're never going to find somebody where you're exactly on the same page.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. You're not going to find your financial clone.
Right. Yeah.
So pick somebody who they're enough of a match that it's not going to drive you crazy every day. And then understand that a difference doesn't mean one of you is wrong.
Oh, that's a good one. Say
It
that
doesn't.
again.
The difference doesn't mean one of you is wrong. Let's say one of you likes to have sex 4 times a week and the other one of you likes to have sex 1 time a week. That doesn't make one of you wrong. It's a difference. It's not you're a horrible person, you're a cold fish. It's not that. It's a difference. You know, these are the kinds of issues that happy couples are living with happily. Unhappy couples are allowing these issues to wreck them. And unhappy couples are going, you know, that's a difference. We may always have this difference, but we're going to be happy anyway. And you may think, well, how? Well, one of the ways is you have frequent discussions that are supportive. Sometimes one of you gets to do it the way you want, and sometimes the other one does, which doesn't get rid of the issue. It just allows you to live with it.
Yeah. So when do you have these? Let's say I'm dating a person. When do you have these types of discussions as the relationship grows and you make the decision, this is a good, or maybe this is one of the decisions that you ask to determine if this is a good partner for you. So when do you ask this?
Immediately.
Oh, okay.
You know, you can't, there's some things you can't say, how much money do you have on the first date? Nobody's going to stay with you on that, but you can say things. Look, there's very little effective partnering unless you know yourself and what your deal breakers are.
Yeah.
You have to make a list. You have to. And I have every book I've written almost talks about exactly how to make this list. But this list has got to identify the distinction between what you want to have and what you have to have. If you know you have to have generosity, and you need to define what that looks like to you. Does that mean this person spends a lot of time with you? Does this mean this person shows a lot of physical affection? Does this mean this person always is down for sex? Does this mean that this person is financially generous? Does this mean, what does that mean to you? Don't just say generous, say exactly what it means. And then identify which parts of this are deal breakers. Like if this isn't there, it doesn't matter if they have everything else, you know, you're not going to stay with them.
Yeah.
Don't keep dating that person. If they have a deal breaker, just don't. I see this all the time. People tell themselves love is enough. It is necessary. Do not ever marry without love, but it's not enough, or all these divorcing people wouldn't be divorcing. They were in love when they married.
Yeah.
It's not enough. It's necessary, but not sufficient. So what that means is you need to have your list. You need to make questions that allow you to ask people very quickly about your list. And if they have a deal breaker, move on now. Do not wait until the stakes are high. And asking the question sounds desperate, because it is desperate at that point. And I never ask anyone to do things that I don't do. You know, I'm in a relationship that I've now been in for not quite 14 months. We're very serious about each other. He's going to be moving to my city shortly because we don't live in the same city. He's not moving in with me. Anybody who's read my book knows that to me and to science, if you're not sure enough to get married, you're not sure enough.
Yeah.
That it's high odds of unhappiness if under those circumstances you move in. But we are very, very serious about each other. And I will tell you, on our first phone call, because he lives 2 hours away, because we both have full lives, and the only time therefore we could see each other was on weekends, I know the research that says long distance relationships that start long distance don't last much longer than a year.
Oh.
So I said to him, you live in X city, I live in Y city. I really like you. By the way, the number one thing any of us, no matter our orientation or our age or our gender, the number one thing any of us can say to attract someone is to say we like them.
Yes.
Don't be coy and act like, oh, I don't care. Yes, you care. Now, don't go to bed with them until they love you. Again, read my book. It'll really help you understand why I'm saying this. But But yes, tell him you like him. I said, I'm really enjoying talking to you. I like you. You've asked if I would like to go out, and the answer is yes, I would like to.
Mm-hmm.
And you live 2 hours away. I could live anywhere, but I really don't want to. I've got a really firm tie to the community that I'm in. I have a religious community here. I have friends here. I have activities here. You know, I know people and am known here. I feel rooted in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the right person, I would still move. But there are two things I'd like to discuss with you. And he said, what? And I said, we don't know each other yet, but I don't see any sense in getting in deep with someone, especially someone I like, actually,
Mm-hmm.
where it's unworkable, where we could have found out right now that it's not workable. Why do that? We're not kids. Why do that? Why waste time? And he said, oh, I totally agree. See, a reasonable person is going to hear that and understand, oh, well, that's just logic. Why would we get 3 years in and break up over something we could have known on the first talk?
Yeah.
So I said to him, I didn't ask him every single question on the first call, but because it was clear this was a definitive difference, we live 2 hours apart. I said, look, I will not have a long distance relationship that lasts more than a year to a year and a half. So the number one thing is, would you be, if this relationship were to be a going concern, I don't know yet, we're on the first phone call, but if it were, would you be willing to close the distance gap within a year to a year and a half? And he said, yeah, I would. And I said, and for the right relationship, again, not saying it's me, just getting a read on where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Notice I'm not saying, will you marry me and move to my city?
Right.
That's off
Yeah.
putting. I am talking in generalities about our vision for each of our lives and seeing if that meshes. It really matters how you frame this. That's
Yes.
how I framed it. So I said, and if this relationship worked out, would you be willing, or any relationship works out for you, would you be willing to relocate? And he said, yes, for the right relationship, I would do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, there was another call I had with somebody else. Here's another thing. So there was this other guy who had called me when I was dating a little over a year ago. And by the way, I used all of my own books. I reread all of them.
Oh, you did?
I did. I took all my own advice and I found this guy in 7 days, or rather I got found by him in 7 days.
Uh-huh.
But that didn't mean I stopped meeting other people. I mean, you don't
Right.
know. Don't commit to somebody you don't even know, who hasn't even asked you for commitment. Don't do that.
Right.
And I told him I wasn't going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you should. And again, I know this is like a bunch of people, their jaws just dropped. Read the book. You'll know why. It works. Go read the reviews of my books. People will say, you'll see them. There are many, many reviews that say, I have my spouse today because of these books. Read the books. You'll see what the science is about why I'm saying this, because we don't have endless time to talk about that today. We're doing some science and others. I'm just telling you what it is. But this other guy who lives in my town, who is a professor, I have a PhD. Do you know how alluring it is to meet somebody else with a PhD? He's cute. He owns his own company. He's a part-time professor, his PhD, you know, just catnip for me, right?
Right.
Okay. So the second he found out who I was, he bought my book, he read the whole thing and called me.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, he did. And that's another thing. People will say, well, but you know what you're doing. This is easy for you. You know, I'm afraid that people will recognize me. Honey, my face is all over the interwebs, everywhere in the entire world. I write books only about dating and relating. That's going to scare some people off.
Yeah.
But I still gave him my first and last name. And, you know, let people be scared if they're going to be scared. Life requires courage. You don't need a weenie. So this guy read the whole book. He loved it. We were really clicking. We're talking. I'm thinking, wow, I really like this guy. But you know what? You need to look for differences, not just similarities.
Oh.
I looked at his profile, and one of the things on his profile was he was politically moderate. Now, I'm not moderate. I'm very liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, don't Don't get off the podcast if you disagree with me politically. The point here is not my politics.
Right.
The point is that most of us, research for the last 20 years shows that increasingly politics is the new religion. People will frequently date outside of their religious orientation, but very rarely outside of their political one anymore. And I knew that that was a deal breaker for me. So I said to him, wow, I am really enjoying talking to you. You are fascinating, because he was.
Yes.
You are fascinating. I noticed that you said on your profile that you are politically moderate. What is an area where someone who is politically liberal might disagree with you? Notice I'm not looking for the similarities. I'm looking to see if there's a deal breaker, because what is the point of kidding ourselves now?
Right. Yeah.
Look, if you're listening to this podcast, it's called Second Wind. It's not called I'm 18 and looking. Everyone listening to this podcast has been to the rodeo.
Yeah.
And they don't want to waste time anymore, I'm presuming. So ask quickly. And so here's what he said. And if he's listening to this podcast, I want to let him know I have great fondness for him. I think a lot of great things about him. And this is too good an example to pass up. I'm not saying anything bad about him, by the way.
Right.
We're just different. He's not wrong.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He said, well, you know, I know that a lot of people who are liberal, and I said, I'm liberal. He said, I know that a lot of liberals think, you know, that there should be a lot of restriction on gun laws. And he said, I carry a gun with me everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, and he goes, is that a deal breaker? And I said, you know, I'm afraid it is. And he goes, really? He goes, couldn't I just not carry a gun when I'm around you? You know what, folks, a lot of you listening out there might think not only that that's fine, but it's preferable. Good. Then you can date this guy. But to me, that's a deal breaker. Notice I'm not saying that your standards have to be my standards. I'm saying you have to know what your standards are and abide by your standards. If this is a strong preference, you can bend on this, but this isn't a strong preference for me. This is a must-have.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not, must-haves mean no matter how awesome this person is, I know, because I know myself, I'm mature, I'm wise, I understand who I am. I know where the rubber meets the road for me. And it doesn't matter where it meets the road for other people. For me, I have to have this. And so what I said to him is, it makes me really sad because I like you. And there seems to be a lot of other potential here. But this is an area where it freaks me out so much. Even if you didn't carry when you were around me, I can't take it. And he then, of course, wanted to talk about all the reasons that he was right and I was wrong. And I said, you may be right. I am not claiming that I am the authority on this issue. I am not saying that you are wrong and I am right. I am saying I can't handle this.
Right.
You could very well be correct.
Yeah.
I can't handle this. I'm saying it's my limitation. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking, you know, somebody going through your course or coaching would come out so much more aware of who they are, even if they don't get a partner. I mean, even if they don't complete the search.
You know, you're so on point, because I've had clients who've worked with me, who've gotten to know themselves a lot better, who've realized, you know what, I don't want a partner. And by the way, they were thrilled having hired me. They didn't feel like they wasted their money on a science-based relationship coach. The relationship that they found that they really wanted was with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Really?
I want you to have the relationship you want, whatever that is. Notice that I'm not saying this guy's wrong. By the way, I want him. I really hope he's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Really good guy. I really hope that he has found the right woman for him and that he is currently blissfully married, because that's what he wants. I hope that happens for him, or has already happened.
Yeah.
I want love for everybody, not just people like me.
Yes. Well, as we are coming close to the end of the hour, and there's so much more, I'm sorry, Duana, you just have to come back, because we talk about sex over 70.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about getting nookie when you're past your 60s. We got to talk about that.
That's a whole new subject there, because I
It
don't
is.
want to leave this one yet, because the communication that we have these days, it's not that you go in and meet at a party or you're set up with a friend or any of that. Most of it is me, the single, going out and actually communicating over line, isn't it? Isn't that one of the biggest ways we find each other?
Yeah, it really is. It used to be that we met through friends and family, and people still do.
Yeah.
People still do meet through activities. People still do meet somebody that they knew in their past, where the relationship could have worked, but it was the wrong time, and they go back to that relationship, and it's blissful. These are always the people still meet these ways.
Yeah.
But I got to say, online has a lot to be recommended for it, and for the things that for the things that aren't recommended, the things that are hard, there are workarounds. There, my new book, that the big advantage of the new book over the old book. Look, that I have a brand new second edition of Love Factually 10 Proven Steps for My Wish to I Do. That just came out Valentine's Day. And
perfect.
yeah, I know. And it's out in audio, and paper. And the thing is, there was a first edition 7 years ago. And everything in the first edition is still true.
Yes.
Science has continued to happen. It has not undermined or disproven. I shouldn't say undermined, because when science progresses, that's not undermining anything, that's progress. But it hasn't disproven anything in the first book. If you have the first book, yay. But the second book, because science has continued, the second book gives you a lot of new, different information, because human nature didn't change, but dating did. The apps that came along changed dating. And so there's a lot more information about how to choose where you're going to date online, how to write a profile for whatever site or app it is that you choose, how to vet people online. There's way more information about that in the new book, just so much more.
Well, that's really great, because in my attempt at going online and finding that person, I really didn't find that person. And so I just quit out of total frustration. But I think there were a lot of things I didn't know how to do well. Write the article, as you said, what is it, your bio, or what is it, your story, whatever that was. And then I started to think, well, I live in a little town, and all those people really want to go to people that are in Dallas instead of Tyler, Texas. But Tyler's growing, so maybe there's more people here. But
everyone that I've ever worked with says, well, I can't find somebody here. And what's really funny is some of these people live in huge cities, and they say, I can't find people here because it's too big. Everybody has a reason it's not going to work. By the way, I don't live in a big city. I moved from a big city to basically a large town. I found the love of my life. I mean, you can do it. It just takes strategy. The strategy is so important. And that strategy begins with you learning to what you need, learning to love yourself through the process, and knowing exactly what the process entails. And that's everything that I do and that I write about and that I coach about. It's my whole life. I feel super lucky to get to do this.
Yes. Well, I think we've come to the end of our time. Duana, this was so funny. We had to delay our show last week, and this has just been awesome. I think the information that we spoke about today is so basic and so important that the listener out there needs to know some of this. Baby steps. I call them baby steps because they're all so important to creating the foundation.
I was just thinking that word, the basic things. Sometimes people think basic means like, oh, you should know this already. What it means is foundational. It means this is so important. You can't build a relationship house without this.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So Okay, do you have anything you want to tell us that we kind of sum up today's discussion?
Yes, you let science help you. It exists to help you. There are resources out there. You don't look, I read science so you don't have to. You don't have to go read the science. I already did it. And I would love for my books to really transform your life. But whether you use my books or whether you decide to read the science directly, don't just stumble around. Dating is not a matter of opinion anymore. There are facts and they will help you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, uh, listeners can go to your website, which is www.lovefactually, FACTUALLY.co, correct?
Exactly.
And
Lovefactually.co.
and you are on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, so they won't have any problem finding you.
There will be zero problems, and I answer all my emails.
Hey, that's cool. Now, I have this book. Shall I start reading the Factually book, or should I go for the new one? I could start with this one, couldn't I?
You know, my revision, the one that just came out,
Mhm.
I am never going to write a better book than that in my life.
Really?
I am more happy with that book. I could die today and feel like I had contributed what I really wanted to contribute with that book. Really and truly. I am going to write another book. I'm starting now to write Love Factually at Midlife and Beyond, because there are special challenges
Yay!
in terms of emotional stuff, sexual stuff, strategic stuff. I am going to write that book, but I will say, there's a reviewer out there who said that the new book is the foundational book, and if you're only going to read one of my books, this should be it. I really agree with that, honestly.
Yeah.
And you're talking about online. If you're even thinking about online, my brand new book is the one to get. It's just there's
Yeah.
so much new information about that.
Right. Yeah. And they can get that at Amazon?
Yeah, they can get it anywhere. Honestly,
Anywhere?
if you
Is it
don't like
in
to get it on Amazon and you go to your local bookseller and they don't already have it, they will order it for you.
Barnes and Noble?
Every place will order it for you.
Ah,
Absolutely.
awesome.
If they don't already carry it, they will get it.
Yeah. And your books are translated into how many different languages?
Well, so the first edition, keep in mind the second edition just came out, and in
Yeah.
the book industry, foreign language translations usually happen years later. So
Ah,
that they don't happen right at the time that the English
yeah.
language edition comes out. So, and a bunch of books, of course, there's never a foreign language edition. But the first edition of Love Factually 10 Proven Steps is now out in Spanish all around the world, and the biggest publishing house for Spanish speakers in the world. That publisher is Planeta. It's
Ah,
also out with Helion in Poland. It's with A to Z Vietnam in Vietnamese, and it's with Shasta in Japanese. So it's all over the world now.
it just says to me, relationship is not just in the USA, America. It's all humans are looking for love, closeness, togetherness, life, happiness.
Yes, these are
So,
universal needs.
yes, they are.
And that's why I want everybody to have it, because it's a need. Love is not just a want, it's a need. I'm not saying romantic love is the only kind of love, but we need love.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Duana. This has been fun, really. And I can't wait till you will come back, right? And we're going to talk about the 60s, the 70s, and relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If
Yay,
you don't have
yay.
me back, I'm going to be sad. You're the best. I really
Okay.
enjoy being on your show. So yeah, I want to come back.
Well, I enjoy having you. So it's just a win-win. So thank you very much for being here. This was great to set the foundation for so many people that maybe had not heard of you, but will be going out to buy your book.
Awesome.
So,
I look forward to hearing from them too. I love to get letters. I love to answer letters.
yeah.
Write to me.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for being here. Now, You know, my dear listeners, that I always like to ask you to do something in the following week so you stay connected and you also keep growing yourself. Now, if you are indeed looking for that partner, then maybe your assignment this week is just go get the book and start reading. But you also need to go to her website because you need to see all the different things that Dr. DWAY-nah offers to the world out there, and to understand about her science in her work. So I would say that's probably the biggest charge you have for this week. And always I say, share. There's a friend, there's somebody walking, there's somebody you're working with that could use this information to change their life as well. So keep us connected. And I look forward to having you with me next week on Second Wind. Thank you for being here today. It's been a pleasure.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.